Hi everyone, ciao a tutti. This is going to be a little introduction in Italian, but you can watch it with English subtitles. Just click on CC. Una piccola introduzione in italiano a questo video per l'intervista che abbiamo fatto con la qui presente Daniela Giombini
Ciao.
alla band norvegese Madrugada. L'intervista sarà ovviamente in inglese, però potete vederla con i sottotitoli, basta che premete sul tasto CC. Madrugada è una band che per qualche motivo non è molto nota in Italia, mentre invece all'estero, abbiamo visto in Germania dove hanno
Ah, sì.
suonato al Tempodrom, che è una location da 3500 posti, hanno un notevole
Un
riscontro.
grande seguito.
Siamo andati appunto nella fredda Berlino a vedere un concerto che è stato splendido e prima del concerto abbiamo avuto occasione di intervistare la band.
Raramente capitano dei gruppi così disponibili alla mano.
È un gruppo che si forma ad Oslo alla fine degli anni 90, pubblica il primo album Industrial Silence nel 1999, a cui seguono altri 4 album in studio. Purtroppo nel 2007 il chitarrista e membro fondatore viene trovato morto e la band, dopo un ultimo tour, decide di sciogliersi. Tornano insieme nel 2019 proprio per celebrare i 20 anni dal loro disco d'esordio e cominciano a scrivere nuovi brani, pubblicano un nuovo album che è appena uscito e vanno appunto in tour. In questo video, quello che in Madrugada ci hanno raccontato. Buona visione!
Ciao.
So I was at your gig in Berlin in 2019, and I remember you mentioned that your very first concert outside Norway was in this city. Can you tell me more about it?
Yeah, it was at the Knack Club. It was really special. It was sold out, which we didn't expect. And at that time, we were playing a lot in Norway, and we played in a lot of student venues. And often people came there. There was a concert and a party. So we had to, it was a lot of talking. So there was a lot of our quiet songs we couldn't play at that time. But when we came to Berlin, I remember just the audience, how quiet it was between the songs, and it was a magic atmosphere. I think we all remember that gig as something special.
It seems like you really have a connection with this city because in 2002 your album Greet was recorded at Three Tonus Tone Studio in Berlin.
Yeah.
How was it?
It was a kind of a weird time in our band because John had just left the band and we were trying to make it work with a new drummer. He was really a great drummer, a friend of mine called Simon. So, but I mean, we were struggling to sort of find out how to be us without John, and also I mean, there were some differences within the group. Frode and Robert were off on this sort of rock and roll thing, but it was a lot of other stuff, you know, like dub music and electronic music, but I was on this sort of I was listening a lot to folk music and country music and all some of this alternative sort of folk music that was happening in the States at the time, which we all were listening to, but I was like particularly into Smog and Will Oldham and that sort of stuff. So it was sort of a clash, like two worlds that didn't gel too well. But I mean, there's some great... The three worlds, at least, yeah. These days, when I listen to the album, I can sort of hear myself being a bit like a fish out of water. Sometimes I was trying too hard, you know. But sometimes it's an exciting album. There's so many sort of styles and so much happening on it.
And I think
you
we
know.
had some successful moments, like for example, 7 Seconds, where we mixed that folk with the rock and roll, and it was like a good merger, and also with I Don't Fit, and of course Majesty, and and Bloodshot.
Bloodshot, yeah.
Bloodshot. I find those 4 songs were,
Yeah.
and then we have some certain tunes that were too.
Stereotypically
Yeah.
kind of punk or
Yeah.
or
It
like,
didn't. I remember we were actually we just did that record, and while we were doing it, we played at the same club, Knack, as a play at our first gig, and that was a bit of a meltdown. I remember.
it was so hot in the
Yeah,
city
that-
too.
that's
It was
true.
like we almost
Literally.
fucking passed out on stage.
But it was also like a little bit meltdown inside of the band in the way of what are we doing? It doesn't feel right, you know. So
But I mean, we stuck with it for
Yeah,
like years and years
We're good at
playing
that.
those songs.
even if it doesn't work, we just stick with it.
But there's other great songs there. I love "Got You." It
Yeah.
really has a great vibe, and I kind of like that reggae song we do as well. When you listen to that, that's.
Did you mention Mad Majesty?
Oh yeah, we already mentioned it, but that's kind of it's almost like it's not on that album.
It's a bit different. It's off. But anyway, like I got you, and but then we had, I guess, Try.
Yeah.
Let's just trash our own album. So
and the first single, Ready,
ready to.
which I kind of was embarrassed by until I heard it on Eurosport.
Wow.
Yeah, it was on Eurosport. I was just watching, and there was this alpine skiing thing, and like, wow. It was like, wow, that's our song. So that was fun. But that's probably the two that are kind of weird Madrugada songs. But I mean, it was, to our defense, it was very much like a garage rock revival happening at the time, and we all loved that sort of the White Stripes and Strokes and all this stuff that was happening at the time, and it just felt kind of right to do that kind of music.
It's a
at the
nice,
time, you know.
nice weirdness, I can tell you.
Yeah,
I really like
yeah.
that record.
Yeah, it
Sorry
was
if you're not in there, but I love
It was
it.
very, very chaotic times for sure, and what we experienced also was that Berlin was really a city that it never closes. You know, there's
Yeah.
always the next club. You know, and the weirdness is very much real in this city. You know?
Yeah.
So it was some fun, kind of really weird nights. Absolutely.
Yeah, and talking about recording records abroad, in 2004, the Deep End was recorded at Sound City in LA. I was recording there.
It was unreal. You know, that studio is
Legendary.
So good. Is so good. And you know, like you had Nevermind with Nirvana, Rumors with Fleetwood Mac, and also Rage Against the Machine's first album. But anyway, the sound in that room is really amazing, and the mixing desk they had at Neve. And it was the first time we did this really professional production.
Yeah.
You know, there was George Rakulias, you know, he was the producer, and he really produced it, you know, like really worked with the arrangement, took a lot of the decisions. So we had never worked with such a strong voice before. We've been doing things more on our own together with an engineer more. But this time was different. And also David Bianco.
Who was the
Engineer.
engineer on the session. He said he passed away a couple of years ago, but he was very much a part of it. And also a producer in his own right, like he had done the Teenage Fan Club and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He was a lovely guy, sort of
Yeah.
balanced out. George Rakulias is like really kind of harsh sense of humor. I mean, he was and then you had this sort of more kind of soft-spoken guy next to him. But I mean, it was so many. Like we have Steve Stevens playing guitar on that album, and it's just there was so many.
Angelo Badalamenti.
Yeah, Angelo Badalamenti, who does all the music for David Lynch, did a string arrangement, working on that level and making a record in LA, and just. You used to get sent to open film premieres and stuff. Oh, you did sometimes.
I did sometimes.
Sometimes,
Surprisingly.
I had a
Yeah.
feeling like sometimes, since you were the guy who were most into the production, sometimes Draculius would sort of like make
Favor
sure
that I go out.
you go out.
We went to the opening party of my favorite movie, actually.
Yeah.
We came a lot later, and but then he was already drunk at the Wes Anderson movie. It was,
Which one?
Life of Brian.
Yeah.
And no, but it was really fantastic. That studio is it's a shame that the mixing desk is not there anymore.
It's a
Studio still there?
Dave Grohl studio now.
Yeah, it's
Dave Grohl
the
bought
Grohl
it.
asset.
I couldn't believe it did that. It was like, this is the mixing that has changed my life. And
Yeah.
I was so surprised at the end of the documentary. It's like, just bringing it out of us. I was sure he was going to do the documentary to get the studio going. So,
Americans are quite unsentimental people sometimes.
but it was, I remember every time we went into the control room, things just sounded much better than you experienced. It was like, it was yeah.
And now, guys, after 14 years, because your previous album was released in 2008, so after all those years, you just released a new album. I was getting back together and writing new songs.
We had a very successful tour in 2019, traveling almost a year with the 20th anniversary of the Industrial Silence album, and that went really well. You know, the band had been away for 14 years, but in the meantime, it seemed that like the band had grown. You know, when we came back, we were able to play much larger venues than we used to back in the days. And of course, Sivert, he had been traveling and playing. He had his solo career, so that probably also promoted Madrugada as a band in our when we were away. I guess we all wanted the tour to just keep going, and it didn't feel sort of like relevant to just start touring with the old material in order to sort of like feel relevant. There was one thing to do, and that was to go in the studio and make a record. So we decided that quite late, actually, in November 2019. And as you might know, we recorded the record in March 2020. So there was a very short span between us deciding to make a record and actually recording it. It's just a matter of months. So no, it was a very, very creative period. We started. We had some of us had like old ideas, and Sivert had some ideas from his Paradise project that stopped a couple of years before. It was the same thing as when we hit the road in 2019 with the Industrial Silence tour. We had to go back to studio and see if we sort of like still had it as songwriters. That was a really intense period. We went to a studio outside of Oslo and started making some songs, and we had a pre-production here, just a couple of kilometers away from here in Tempelhof. There's a studio called Candy Bomber, where we also sort of like had some pre-production and demo sessions, and then we went off to LA in March. So it was a very, very creative period, but the songwriting period was really sort of like it was really quick, but yeah, cool. And it was important for us to underline the good live band we'd become during 2019 tour. Yeah. So it was really important for us to record the songs live.
Yeah. And one of the songs included in the last album, Stabat Mater, this Latin, has a similar mood of some Italian soundtrack from the 70s, like, for example, Stelvio Cipriani. I don't know if you know it. Anyway.
I don't know him.
Yeah. But did you get inspired in some way by any music?
There may be like a Morricone kind of thing there too, but I don't really know that much about Italian music, which is probably a shame because I have a feeling there might be some great stuff from I mean, we definitely were talking about stuff like Serge Gainsbourg, and so there's definitely a European flavor to that song. We have this sort of inside sort of joke in the band, like about something we call the Spanish vibe, So I guess we all have a feeling. Yeah, there's probably just a Latin kind of vibe or a European vibe or just this sort of these chords that loosely based on like flamenco and fado music and stuff. But it's really like a kind of a European blues music in a way, you know. And it's I guess that's where it started. You brought that thing in, so it was called Spanish Computer for a long time.
No, it was playing around with major and minor chords. You know, there's a lot of the same chord, just major and minor, shifting like that.
Yeah.
So interesting chain of chords that could be repeated, and we have many takes, versions, ways to go with it. So we ended up here with the choir and everything. So, but there were some you were touching other ways too. So, but it's a song that I think we enjoy a lot to play live.
Oh yeah, it's getting better. It's has a very monumental feel.
Yeah.
You know, and it's really sort of a flavor or kind of a song that we haven't had yet in Madrugada. But it really feels a lot like a Madrugada song. Like it just slips in there perfectly between all the other ones, but it doesn't sound like any of the other ones still.
And I also think that lyric-wise, is about here and now.
Talking about Italian music, I don't know if you know that there is a prog rock Italian band from the 70s called Madrugada.
Yeah.
You know that?
Oh, they're Italian. I didn't know they were Italian, but yeah, okay. We're sorry about that. There's probably a lot of Spanish and Mexican bands called Madrugada too.
Might be, yeah. Or Portuguese, yeah. So, can you please tell me about the new guitar players in the band replacing Robert? How is it working with them?
Yeah, I've been working with them both in my solo band for a long time, and Kato even was in Madrugada for the last tour just after Robert passed away, and had been playing with us occasionally before that as well. So I mean, he was a good friend of the band. You know, we were fans of his band, the Kato Salsa Experience. Great garage rock kind of MC5 kind of thing that they did. Great band you should really check out. So it just felt like when we got back together, like Kato should definitely be there, and then we needed another guy who was like a great guitar player and a great keyboard player, and then Christer was in my band and felt like a natural choice. You know, they're both musicians of a certain kind of age in Norway. You know, it's kind of we're the same sort of. We have share the same kind of references in a way. You know, even though.
You know, we've been in the same environment. You know, like in Oslo since the late 90s, 1997. You know, back to there. So Kato was playing with us in 2000, wasn't it?
He was,
yeah. So we know him way back. So it was a very natural choice.
I think it was 2001 he played with us.
Okay.
2001.
Okay. So it was very natural, and and Robert also wanted him to be a part of the band, so we knew that.
You played some gigs in Italy in 2019. How was it? And do you have any plan about touring back to maybe to promote the new album?
We loved the Italian gigs. Of course, they were kind of on a smaller level than most of the other countries where we went, like audience-wise, which makes it kind of it's kind of financially hard to include Italy then on the. But we will definitely, like, we had a great time there, and you know, the crowd was fantastic. So it's something that we might want to build on, but we might need some more promotion or whatever up front. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but I mean, it was fantastic. But you know, it's a big touring party and
Sure.
everything. So it has to sort of at least break even or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, for some reason you are not that popular in Italy. I don't know why, but
No, even Spain is kind of on one notch up, and definitely Portugal is a lot bigger. So maybe that will change. I mean, everything sort of seems to be moving in the right direction now anyway. So maybe a festival or something at a point would be a nice thing for us to do.
Yeah.
Because there seem to be some Madrugada fans
There are, yeah.
everywhere almost.
Yeah. So now I have a question for the three of you.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first record you ever bought?
It was Led Zeppelin 4, the first vinyl.
Yeah.
It was a big deal. It was very expensive back in the days, you know. I used a long time in a music store, but it fell on that one.
For me, I think because me and my sister had just gotten a Walkman from our dad, and then with that we got the first Aha record, which was a big deal then. And but at some point, just after we bought like 3 cassettes, and it was Born in the USA and Like a Virgin, which is a great record, and either it was Reckless by Bryan Adams or it was Sting's first solo album, which is also a nice album actually. So, and I just remember there was so many of those like huge albums that were like big mainstream pop rock albums that were released around that time, 84, 85. So.
My first records were actually, I bought all the Doors albums in one day. That was my first record. And you know, some of them are also recorded in Sunset Sound, where we recorded our latest album. So.
Sure.
Also the Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
But Like a Virgin, I don't think.
You guys did the cover of Mother of Earth by Gun Club.
Yes.
And the sound of the slide guitar in your music reminds me a bit to that band and also to the Australians Beasts of Bourbon.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you like these two bands?
Gun Club has been a big thing for our band. I think we were introduced to them by our manager back in the day, Tom Shecklesater, who was the first manager and sort of mentor of the band, really, at the point. And yeah, they were very a big thing for us. Absolutely, you know, Robert was sort of obsessed with that sort of sound that Jeffrey Lee Pierce made in his band, and yeah, we had the pleasure to play with Kid Congo Powers, also at the Oslo Spectrum. The first time we played there, he came over from New York just to do that, which we thought was kind of great.
And he also plays on the last album in the studio.
He did that too. Yeah.
Cool. How is the rock music scene in Norway nowadays? Is there any band, new band you recommend?
Rock-wise, I can't really say that I've heard anything that's like really done it for me, except, you know, Kvelertak is a pretty impressive band. Kvelertak. They have a pretty good international career, actually. They opened for Metallica recently. It's more like a heavy rock kind of thing, you know, kind of mixing a little bit of like Norwegian black metal in a kind of a more of a heavy rock way. They were very fresh when they, like, on their first album, like really kind of with a great sort of pop sensibility to it, yeah. But I mean, apart from that, rock in Norway is not really a big thing at the moment. It's more the kind of singer-songwriters, like big pop pop productions.
There's a lot of Americana acts.
Yeah, it is true. Yeah, it's
almost
true.
An own genre. They call it Norvegicana. So yeah, a lot of bands like, and our support act today is Darling West. They're for part of that genre, that scene.
Yeah.
Really skillful musicians, really great songs.
Do you know the name of the band you like?
That metal band. They sing in Norwegian.
All right.
Is that Kvelertak?
Yeah.
Kvelertak.
They
Yeah.
did the Metallica.
Yeah, it's them. It's them. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, they are cool.
Yeah, I think they're a cool band.
How's the tour going so far?
Great. Yeah, we're very happy. I think our timing is very good, actually. Just coming out of the whole COVID thing, like we couldn't have planned that, so that was just plain luck. Like we've been lucky. There seem to be a lot of artists that are struggling to get people to their shows, but not Madrugada so far. So we have the best fans, I think. Yeah.
Guys, thanks so much. I'm looking forward to your show tonight.
Oh yeah, we are too. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.